I'm Barry LaValley. I'm Canadian, and so this is a big day for us. Yeah, I guess everything's totally legal. Now, I didn't use this stuff before, but not since university, and that, but now I'm thinking maybe I should start. So anyway, I'm totally stoned right now. I want to share with you my background and how I got into this, because we're going to talk about retirement. My formal education is in psychology. I had this idea I was going to be a psychologist, and I didn't do that. I've always held an interest in something that I call financial gerontology. In other words, what happens to us as we get older, and how does that affect the way that we look at our money? I was quite active in the financial services industry for many years. In 1997, I decided to go off on my own because I was getting older, everybody was getting older, and it struck me that the chief advisors on retirement for aging baby boomers were financial advisors. And yet, between you and I, very few of them actually even understood retirement. What they understood was how to work the money. They didn't worry about the life issues. And so I built my own company, and since '97, I have been working with financial services companies, government agencies, and we've built a number of programs on retirement. We also do a lot of research, and so I'm going to share with you some of that research tonight on retirement, what retirees do, what you should think about as you look at this next phase of life. Now, I'm not going to talk about money at all. That's really not my area anymore. But you see, everything is about money in that the issues that you face will affect the plans that you make. Now, I love working with Gold Medal Waters because they understand about life first and then money. Tonight, we'll talk about retirement, but we're going to talk about it as what is retirement. We'll talk about the proper attitude to have that successful retirees exhibit. We'll talk about relationships and leisure and what the science tells us about retirement happiness. So that's where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to speak for about an hour. You'll get a chance to have some dinner while I'm speaking. We intentionally turned the baseball game off. I'm sorry. I trust I'm able to hold an audience, but you know what? Well, I guess you're upset about the Rockies anyway, so you may not have watched it while you're trying to listen. Let's start off with talking about retirement, because you see, I believe that this is very much a misunderstood concept. When my father retired a generation ago, he retired because he was 65, he retired because he was taking somebody else's job, he retired because after all, at this point in our life, we should enjoy our golden years. That's retirement, that's what we were taught. We were taught that 65 is old. And the reason for that is when they passed the U.S. Social Security Act in 1935, they said 68 initially is when they were going to start paying out benefits, and then they dropped it to 65. The average American man back then lived to be about 61. Now understand, that didn't mean people didn't live to be 80, but Social Security was never expected to pay off in the way that it has. So we got this idea that 65 is old. I thought about that because last May, I had my 65th birthday. And I thought, whoa, where did that come from? I look in the mirror and I go, all right, I'm a little bigger than I thought I would be. I am a little grayer than I thought. It's silver, actually, for those of you who are wondering. It's actually in its own name, it's silver, not gray. And I look at myself and I go, okay, my birthday now comes once a week. And that scares me. I am now closer to death than I am to Woodstock, and that scares me. And so we deal with getting older. Now, 65 to me was kind of way out there. When I was younger, I used to watch a show, Beverly Hillbillies. Irene Ryan, who played Granny, remember her? Do you know Granny did that role when she was in her early 50s? Now you say, well, yeah, she had lots of makeup. Not when you see a picture of Irene Ryan, or Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee on the Andy Griffith Show. I know some of you are going there like you're a deer in the headlights. Like, and Yeah, I'll bet it was on black and white, right? It was. But she was in her late 40s when she started that role, and then moved into 55 when she finished it. That was old. Those women on TV were old, at least from my perception. Now, anybody seen a picture recently of Jane Fonda? I've got one in my wallet if you want to. I travel a lot, and I have her workout video with me all the time. Not obviously to work out with, so I just wanted to mention that. So we got this understanding about retirement. You retire when you're old, and when you retire, it's the beginning of a 30-year-long weekend. Now, I want you to think about that. I got a couple of questions to ask you, just so we're all on the same page about what this is all about. True or false? Retirement could be the longest single phase of your life. Sure, you think the red Jill could be?
Sure.
All right, except from the time I'm 65 through to the time I'm in my late 80s, if I make it that far, I'm going to go through anywhere from 6 to 8 very distinct transitions driven by my health or the health of my wife, Melissa. It's not one long life phase at all, is it? It's a multi-phase journey. Things change as we get older. I wish they didn't. In fact, the way that psychologists talk about how we handle the aging process is that we circle the wagons. It's called continuity theory. And what it says is, as we age, we start looking at all these things that don't work anymore like they used to, or the world's going mad, and we just want to grab onto things that keep us centered. So, what does that mean? Well, there's a concept of aging in place. As we get older, we don't want to move from where we live. Okay, that's been a concept that's been talked about for years. The trouble you have getting your aging parents out of a home that no longer suits their needs and get them to you see, it's the storehouse of their memories. Continuity theory suggests that our prejudices, our biases, become much more entrenched as we get older. You see, if I happen to have a set of beliefs, they are part of my makeup. And my makeup is under attack every day. So Rick, if you and I, or Rich, you and I disagree on something, I have my view, you have yours. Might be right, left, whatever it is. I'm not moving off of what I believe. Because continuity theory keeps me here. It's one of the reasons why the political discourse everywhere is so bad. And it's not that we can't talk, but you see, you're also shaking who I believe I am as a person. So, it has application, and what that results in is two theories, or two things in behavioral finance. First of all, there's the concept of cognitive dissonance. You see, Rick, if you and I come to some agreement, that changes how I view myself, because I have to give up some of myself to talk to you. And if we agree, then we're meeting in the middle. I don't want to go there. So what it does is, if I do agree to go there, it creates this thing in my mind called cognitive dissonance. In other words, this is not who I am, and that to me is very uncertain ground. I'm much more comfortable here. And the second thing that happens is something called confirmation bias. And what confirmation bias very simply is some of you will watch Fox News and you will not watch anything else. Some will watch CNN and you will not watch anything else. That's continuity theory at work, because why do I want to watch something that tries to shape the beliefs that I have? And so again, this is a function of the aging process. Here's what it means to retirement. Generally, if you didn't do something before, you are less likely to do it after. You know, people talk all the time in my sessions about, oh, we're going to do all these new things. And I said, well, do you like to do new things? Well, no, but now I have time. I could do a bunch of new things. Well, here's the problem. You've got time, but you've also got you. So you've got that. So we have trouble trying to manage continuity theory, because continuity theory says you are who you are. Now, here's another application. True or false, When you retire, you become a new person. What do you think? Oh yeah, I get this in my workshops too. You know what, Megan? We're going to be so happy when we retire. Oh, we're going to go there. We're going to be so happy. We're miserable now, but we're going to be so happy. Look, if you're sitting in here, you're not yet retired, and you're already miserable, I can't help you. Because you are who you are. That's the person you take into this phase of life. You want to know how you're going to spend in retirement? How do you spend now? Because that doesn't change until the money runs out. So again, spenders stay as spenders. People who are frugal or save a lot will continue to do that. So understand that this doesn't apply to everybody, but it does apply to the vast majority of people. I believe that retirement is a misunderstood concept because for years we have tied it to whether you work or whether you don't. That's always bothered me because whether you work or not should not matter to this view of yourself that says, you know what, I'm now in control of my life. In fact, that's how I would say you are retired. When you wake up one morning and you say, from this point on, I can do what I want and when I want and how I want, you're retired. Because the concept isn't work versus no work, money versus no money. The concept is, at some point in your life, you are now in control. And so now I want you to think about that. Are you in control of your time? Are you in control of your happiness? Are you in control of the things that you do? The things you want to do? I will talk to people and say, how's your retirement going? And the answer is always the same. It's never been this busy. I don't know how I ever found time to work. And so you say, great, are you doing what you want? No, don't have time. Now think about that. If it's me, I am going to take the time that I have and I'm doing the things I darn well want to do first. And then I'll fit the other stuff around. But I want to be in control. Now in psychology, the idea of being in control, feeling that you can control things, it means that you're self-directed. It's called locus of control. Now, two types. I'm either self-directed, which means I believe I'm responsible for my own happiness. As my father would say, if it's to be, it's up to me. I'm control over what I think is a goal that I've hit or an accomplishment I made. I'm in control whether I decide that's an accomplishment or not. I'm in control over whether I feel bored or whether I let the world get me down. I have control. Now the other kind of person is called other-directed. An other-directed person, nothing is ever your fault. Your moods are dependent on what you read, what you hear, the weather, your family, whatever it is. Now here's the problem. You see, if I were to ask everybody here, are you self-directed or other-directed? You might say, I'm self-directed. But for many of you that would be wrong because you see only 10% of the adult population could be considered to be totally self-directed. These are the people that break against continuity theory. These are the people that refuse to accept that just because you're old you can't do things. These are the people that say, whatever this is, I have a health affliction, I have an attitude that says, I'm going to control how I feel about this. That to me is when you graduate into this new state of being. I'm fond of keywords, and I'm going to put a couple of them up here, but when I look at retirement, I look at it more as an opportunity. And it's an opportunity because I like how the Japanese look at it. The Japanese have a concept called second life. And when you get to a certain point in your life, when you're 55, 60, you become an exalted member, a respected member of society. Your kids and younger people look up to you. Wouldn't that be fun? And you are somebody who dispenses wisdom. Now, it's also interesting, you buy a home and your family moves in and they look after you. So they've got some good ideas, I think, on aged care. But it's this idea that you get to this point of enlightenment. As you think of your retirement, you look at it as, this is my point of enlightenment. In other words, this is where I get to live the life that I want, and I get to live it on purpose. Now, most retirees do not do this. But the people that you know who are successful, they do it. So as we look at what your opportunity is, I want you to think big. I want you to look out and say, what can I possibly do at this point in my life? For example, is there anybody here that would like to go back to school? Yeah, one. You put up your hand now?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I thought you knew everything. That's why I deal with you.
I know I'm doing additional education.
All right. I have a
Tax education.
well, of course, yeah. But I have a doctor friend who is retired. He gave up his practice at age 65. He's always been interested in art history. And he found out that at the University of Victoria, he can take art history courses. This semester is being taught in Tuscany. Now think about that for a minute. His wife has gone with him. Her reasoning is she's cooked for 40 years. They're going to take cooking classes at night so he can learn to cook. What would be wrong with that? I think that's a cool idea. And yet you get people who go, you know. So that's an opportunity to be able to expand your thinking. You're never too old to learn. You're never too old to do new things. The challenge you might have is health. And for the gentleman in the room, the challenge might be something called andropause. Anybody ever heard of andropause? Okay, one guy. Andropause. Male menopause. Male payback time. All right? Andropause basically happens to us in our 60s. All it means is that your testosterone production starts to decline. Now, don't worry, there's relevance here. At the very time that your wife wants to get up and go do things, you would much rather sit in the couch and nest. Now, self-directed people will fight through that, but understand that between continuity theory and andropause, it's like this big black hole drawing you in. And the longer you do it, the harder it is for you to get up and go and do things. Now, there are a lot of differences between men and women as they look at this phase of life, but one of the causes is andropause. Now look, lest you think this is terrible for you, there are pills and creams and salves and gels that you can buy that will help that out. But understand the natural fallback is to not do things. Women are much more likely to go out and do new things in retirement. What I'm hoping out of this session is for you to say, I disagree with what you say, I'm darn well going to go do it. And if that's what happens, then my work is done. Now, out of opportunity, that also comes possibility. And as you think of what might be possible, before you sit down with the team at Gold Medal Waters, you want to think in terms of what can I possibly do? As I look at this life, what is within our control that we can actually do? Because if you want this period of your life to be something that's magical, you don't want to make the mistake that many retirees make. What many retirees do is they let continuity theory take over their thinking, and they do the same thing over and over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day. For example, I'm a golfer. I love to golf. Who's a golfer in the room? Okay, so here's the common goal in retirement. When I retire, I am going to golf 7 days a week. Or I'm going to golf 5 days a week. But I love to golf, and now I can golf every day. I belong to a golf course. I live on Vancouver Island. And if you know the area, you know we very seldom get snow, and you can golf all year round. We got guys at our golf course that are out there every day. And you say to them, well, how come you're out here every day? Their response is, well, it kills 6 hours. And you say, do you even enjoy it anymore? The answer is, I don't think that's the point. I'm golfing. That's what you do in retirement. And did I mention it kills 6 hours? I say, how does your wife feel about that? Well, she's trying to get me to play 36 holes in a day. In fact, I play golf every Saturday with a guy named Charlie. Charlie's 75 years old, and he's a hoot. He's the guy that, he's so funny, but he's the world's worst golfer. So he's out there one day, and he's hitting balls out of bounds and in the water. Not typical Charlie. About the 5th hole, he hits another ball out of bounds. He slams his club down. He said, you know, if I wasn't married, I'd quit this game. We tend to do the same things over and over. And so again, we want to fight out of that. Now the worry I have is if you are other-directed, you miss an awful lot in your life because your world starts to become, I can't do that because I'm too old. I'm single, I can't go out and go with you because I don't want to be a third wheel. My mother, she's 87. I love her dearly, but she exhibits other-directedness all the time. My mother is an American football fan. She loves the Super Bowl, and she phoned me up, and I don't live where she lives, but she phones me up, and she said, I want to watch the Super Bowl. I said, great, Mom. She said, I don't want to watch it by myself, though. I said, well, I got 2 brothers who live where she lives. Phone Gary or Tim. Say, I'm coming over. I want to watch the Super Bowl. She said, oh, I couldn't do that. I said, why? She said, those boys are funny. Now, they are. But the point there is, she can't go over and watch the Super Bowl because she doesn't want to offend them. So, I said, no problem. You have 2 friends in your complex, Betty and Jean. Now, I don't know if they like football, but they love wine. So go out, get a big box of wine, which is how she drinks it, often in the same sitting. Invite them over. You watch the football game. They can drink the wine. She said, oh, I couldn't do that. I said, why? She said, well, those girls are funny. She had every ability to make her own reality, but she did not. Now, you might be listening to this saying, oh, yeah, but that's not how most normal people are, and I am going to disagree with you. Because unfortunately, as I deal with literally thousands of people over the year, talking about what they do, how they do it, I see what happens. And all I'm doing is just giving you a cautionary tale. If you want your retirement to be what you want, then you have to make it happen. Because you're in control. And that brings me to the 3rd key word, and that's attitude. As you look ahead, I want you to think in terms of, am I looking forward to the future? Do I fear it? Am I worried about being bored? What about my relationships? What about getting older? How am I going to handle that? These are all things that we all experience. Now, when I look at whether a person is going to be successful or not in retirement, there's a number of things that I look for. First of all, are you more optimistic or pessimistic? Do you have this attitude that's glass half full or glass half empty? You see, if you are always looking at the negative, and we all know these people that are drama queens in our lives, right? You're looking at things and you're creating extra stress for yourself. Now, that's not going to help you from a healthy aging perspective. We want people that can roll with the punches. And if there are health issues that affect you, or relationship problems, or financial problems, you look at it, you say, okay, we're going to handle this, but there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And so that light isn't your death. That light, well, some of you can get pretty negative, I know. But that light is going to be, when I get out of this, I am going to move on. So it's all about attitude. Optimism versus pessimism. Creating positive stress in your life versus negative stress. Now, you might say, what do you mean positive stress versus... They're the same. Stress is stress. Well, not actually. See, the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 killers among people who are retired, not accidents, But we don't die of old age, right? You know that nobody ever dies of old age. We die of disease. If accidents don't get us or whatever, but if you live a long life, somewhere along the line, your immune system gets compromised and we die. In the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, it's cardiovascular, stress-related cancers, strokes, and diabetes. Much of those can be attributed to negative stress. You see, when we are under negative stress, we produce a particular hormone called cortisol. Anybody here heard of cortisol? Do you know what it is? One of the nastier things we produce. I assume it's for the flight or fight response, right? Because what it does is it makes you aware. Now, the stress, the threat, doesn't have to be real. And in most cases, it's not. That doesn't stop your amygdala in the back of your head from sending the signals to produce cortisol. Here's what cortisol does. Cortisol puts plaque in your arteries. Cortisol increases your heart rate. It expands or increases the size of your heart. Cortisol doesn't let you sleep at night. It gives you hot sweats. And it undermines your immune system. Your ability to create positive stress will be your ability to wash out the effects of cortisol. Now here's what happens. If you create positive stress in your life, you create two hormones. First of all, if you're doing something that makes you feel really happy, really engaged in life, you get that rush. That's serotonin. Serotonin, the happiness drug. It's a neurotransmitter. It goes directly to the brain's pleasure center. It helps in healthy aging. The second thing that's the key building block of healthy aging is dopamine. Dopamine. That feeling when you are in love. The feeling when you look out at the vista in the mountains and you go, ah. The feeling when you go to church or when you meditate. When you have that general feeling of well-being, that's dopamine. Now, whether successful retirees realize that they're doing this or not, they do more things in their life to make them happy or to make them feel at peace so that they can counterbalance the effects of cortisol. In fact, if I'm in a workshop, I would have you do 3 lists. 1, 2, 3. This list is everything in your life that drives you nuts. Every person that drives you nuts. Everything where you look at this and go, boy, I don't know much about cortisol, but I got to be expending it now. In the middle list, you write down everything in your life that makes you happy, where you get that real thrill about life. And in the other column, everything that makes you feel at peace with the world. Your relationships, your spirituality or religion, your peace of mind. And try and do more things in the 2 columns on the right-hand side than the one on the left. All right? So when you're building an activity plan, that's what you want to focus on going into retirement. Now, as far as attitude goes, there has been a lot of work done on what makes people happy in retirement. And I'm going to share with you a formula on happiness. Is there a cloth that I can use just to erase this?
Yes.
All right. I do a lot of work in the area of positive psychology, and one of the people that I follow is a fellow named Dr. Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania. Seligman wrote a number of books. One of the books is called Authentic Happiness. And there's so many people out there to say, you know, we'll get you into this Zen theory about how to be happy. But what he and his cohorts have done is look at what the science tells us about how we heal ourselves, about something called neuroimmunology, about the response of our hormones, the response of our psychology to the life that we lead. Now, here's what Seligman says is the formula for happiness. It's an acronym, and it's called PERMA. P-E-R-M-A. The P in PERMA stands for positive outlook, and I just talked about that. Actually, positive emotion. And I've talked about that when we talk about the importance of always being positive, because if you are negative, that's going to produce more cortisol than anything else. If you're positive, you feel good. And that really helps as far as healthy aging. It buttresses your immune system. The E stands for engagement in life. Now, one of the problems that we have, especially among high performers, is when they get into retirement, they start to question their relevance and question their uselessness or usefulness. Men more so than women, I find, although women run through it too. I did a session in San Francisco. I had a lady who was former CEO of a Fortune 500 company. We were talking about retirement, and she said, you know, when I was the CEO, everybody knew me. I'd walk into the room, I got respect. She said, now I'm retired.